It's just a little over 2 weeks into the launch day of Dying Light 2. Within that time, worries on how the game runs on last-gen consoles should probably not entirely be addressed, but at the very least, hopefully get people's expectations more properly in line with how it's going to run on their hardware. Tomorrow we have a lineup of content creators set to, I believe all of them are live streaming a different side quest from the game, which will give more insights how the game looks, and based off what the creators say, how the game feels now so close to launch compared to what they felt back in November. And just before that, yesterday, Techland's lead game designer had one last Dying to Know More episode where he addressed one of the community's biggest worries, the parkour and how floaty it looks. If you venture into any early gameplay videos or even any trailers, you're bound to find something from someone talking about Aiden seeming too light when he's falling or gliding through the environment with no real human weight behind his movements. And Tymon Smektala pretty much said, to compensate for the difference between parkour and real life, where you're processing a lot of information, you have your normal field of view, what's in front of you, your periphery, and of course the knowledge on what you physically can achieve. In the game, you're limited to what's on screen, you can only see what's in front of you, and to also ease a little bit of the motion sickness and dizziness that players sometimes experience from the original game, they made it where at the end of your parkour sequences, Aiden is given just a little bit of extra time in the air to process your surroundings, process what's around you, to be able to make the correct decision on what you want to do next without breaking that flow of movement. He also explained the gravity system in this game and compared it to the gravity systems in Dead Island and the original Dying Light, which I thought was really fucking cool.
And I think this may surprise you. So, of course, we simulate a lot of physics in Dying Light to stay human, and we also use a lot of physics variables. For example, the gravity. And the gravity in Dying Light 2 is set to exactly 9.8 meters per second, which is...
standard gravity on Earth.
Exactly, that's that. And the funny thing is that in Dying Light 1 and Dead Island, the value was about twice as big. So that was unrealistic. But when you are used to the previous game, when you watch the trailers or gameplays on the internet, you might think that something is off. But I hope that when you start playing the game, you will feel that Aiden's moves feel more natural and more realistic this way.
So the reasoning definitely makes sense, but just like he said, it really boils down to getting the game in your hands. From that moment on, ideally everything should just fall into place, but in comparison to the original Dying Light, and he even said Dead Island, the reason why it looks like there's more weight in those games behind your actions is because the gravity in those games are actually doubled to an unrealistic number. So it's more in this world of Dying Light 2, we have Aiden, who, to clarify, he mentions is more along the lines of an athlete and not a superhuman. He can run at about 14 miles per hour, which he says sprinters can realistically achieve. And the gravity in this world is set to the standard gravity of the Earth. And that while we might have certain abilities that could be difficult to pull off, but they're not entirely impossible. He actually gave this example when it comes to Aiden's double jump.
Parkour in Dying Light 2 is basically parkour on steroids. So it's more like it. So for example, Aiden can do something like a double jump. Well, it's not like a real double jump that he jumps twice in the air, but if there's something in the air he can spring off, then he can do that. Maybe it's impossible to do in real life, maybe it's extremely difficult in real life, but it's fun to do and it's very useful in gameplay.
I don't know about you guys, but this whole concept of having the gravity tied more realistically to the Earth and Aiden being more of an athlete rather than superhuman has actually got me much more excited for this game, and I can't wait to see how hopefully well this gravity system is implemented. The other thing Tymon touched on is difficulties. Now, a couple of days ago I made a video on the trophy list for Dying Light 2 being leaked, which if you want to check that video out, go ahead and click on the top right hand corner of your screen. That video touches on story beats, some open world activities, and a bunch of other stuff, but there was no trophies tied to difficulties. Now, if you played the original game, you know that we have about 4 or 5 different difficulties, and if I remember correctly, all of those were added in post-launch. If not, at least story nightmare mode, I know for sure were. And this all but confirms that we will be getting more difficulties coming to the game, or at the very least, Techland is considering of bringing that back. It's just a matter of, are we going to get this choice at launch, or is this something that's going to be coming post-launch? We do know we have a bunch of content coming within the next 5 years. I highly doubt we're going to have to wait any longer than 6 months if they do implement something like this, but in terms of difficulty, he mentioned that you can expect it to not affect the parkour system, that it'll affect the amount of damage you take and maybe the amount of effect that you're dealing with, but don't expect it to affect the flow of the traversal, because they really seem to want the parkour to be something that's easy to learn, hard hard to master, and they don't want to throw a wrench into that machine by adding difficulty sliders into your movement. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Personally, I really like how they've been very transparent about hearing all the complaints. They heard everyone complain about health bars being in the game, and then following Dying to Know, they basically said, you know, you can remove those if you want. They came around and touched on the topic of floaty parkour, and they even seem to be touching on last gen, even though arguably they are kind of dragging their feet with it. Let's talk. What do you guys think about this gravity system? How does that sound to you? Does it get you more excited, or does it sound like it's going to be a massive flop? It's cool seeing both sides of the arguments, because I've been seeing a lot of people be incredibly hyped while other people are just like, nah, it's going to be the next Cyberpunk. But like always, my name is Cynic. Thank you all so much for watching. Feel free to watch any of my other Dying Light 2 videos, or even subscribe for some future Dying Light news updates and maybe one day tutorials once the game finally launches. But until then, I'll see y'all later.